I'm so happy, I have to say, when that room is full of students. And tonight, dear Maria Ressa, the amphitheater is full for you. And I think this is something that is really, really important. I have to say, dear Maria Ressa, dear Arancha González, dear Alice Antome, dear students, dear friends, I have to say first that I'm very happy, very proud, and very delighted to welcome you tonight for three main reasons. The first one, the name of our amphitheater is Émile Boutmy. I don't know if you know, but Émile Boutmy is the founder of Sciences Po. Sciences Po was founded 150 years ago. And Émile Boutmy was a journalist. This is a symbol. He was a journalist, and he was really in favor of freedom of information and freedom of expression. And I think there is something that is really symbolic tonight, to have you in that amphitheater, and we think about our founder, Émile Boutmy, that was a journalist and that wanted to create a new university with new principles, and again funded with the pillar of freedom of expression, freedom of information. I'm really delighted and very happy for a second reason, because of your fights, because of your stamina, because of your leadership. You received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2021 in recognition of your efforts to safeguard freedom of expression, which is a precondition for democracy and lasting peace. You have been harassed, you have been prosecuted because of your journalistic investigative work. You co-founded Rappler, the top digital-only news site that is leading the fight for press freedom in the Philippines. And I have to say that your struggle is so crucial. In 2022, 59 journalists were killed in the world. Last but not least, I'm really happy to welcome you, dear Maria Ressa, because your fight for freedom of speech, for freedom of expression, for freedom of information, has to do with our fight for freedom, for academic freedom. And your fight is a model to follow when it comes to academic freedom. Academic freedom, as you know, is at risk in many populist regimes, in many dictatorships, but is also at risk in democracies, in Europe, and even in France. And I have to say that we are also very happy because in that amphitheater, a few weeks ago, we welcomed Fariba Adelka, our researcher that were jailed for almost 4 years in Iran. And now she's back. And thanks to her fight, thanks to her model, Sciences Po is leading a coalition of universities with NGOs, with other actors to promote and to protect academic freedom. And there is something to say, academic freedom, freedom of information, there are two main pillars of democracies. Dear Maria Ressa, thank you very much for being with us tonight. This is an honor. You can applaud her. And we can congratulate the School of Journalism and the School of International Affairs for organizing that conference. Please. Thank you very much, dear Maria Ressa. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, I'm really short, so I really love the lyricism of the French language, but I unfortunately can just say l'état généraux de l'information. This is actually one of the reasons. So let me tell you before I go into kind of the way I see the world and what we've lived through, what you're going to walk out of here with tonight. This is still too tall. Can I borrow this? Can I borrow this? Yes! Okay, all right. So I won't fall, don't worry, okay? It's just this is easier because I can see you, and I'm not there. So I hope that when you get up and walk out of here, first of all, thank you for coming during dinner time. And I hope when you leave here, you will ask yourself the same question we asked ourselves in Rappler, which is, you'll see this from the first slide that is up. It's courage on, but really it's this question. What will you sacrifice for the truth? And I'm so sorry to start so heavy-handed, but this is the time we are living in. Do you know what the truth is? What are the facts? What is our shared reality? These are some of the things that were tested and have been torn apart, right? So, the tâche généraux de l'information, I gotta do better in French, is actually a way to get your thoughts, right? This is to give you the ability to tell us, to tell the world where we should be going. And I hope that's what you take. Let me take 15 to 20 minutes right now and show you what we've lived through, right? This book was published in November 2022, the same week that ChatGPT came out. How many here have tried ChatGPT? Raise your hands. Very good. Yes, right? Because think about it like this. Large language models is not just about the information that we can read or watch or listen to. It is also about the information that is literally about the creation of life. It is about synthetic biology. It's about those 4 chemicals in our DNA that is literally going to change the way we live, who we are, what will happen in the future. So this moment is critical. Let me quickly show you. Come here. There. There's a French version of it. And the French, it doesn't like it when I'm not near. How to Stand Up to a Dictator is actually all about the lessons I hope that we'll take out of it, and I hope that you'll be able to see. But the 20 languages that it's been translated in show you what's at stake for us, right? This is Japanese, Korean, Mandarin. It came out in June, and it's coming out in Arabic, November this month. But let me summarize it really quickly in just these 3 things. We are caught. The war that is happening is not in the Middle East. It's not in Ukraine. It's in your pocket. It's in your phone. If you have a phone and you've downloaded any kind of the social media app, you're part of that war, and you're part of the target, right? So it's a person-to-person defense of our democracy. And one of the most wonderful things about being in France is that President Macron has put a landmark initiative together to try to get your thoughts, your goals, your values. You can help define what it'll look like. So, person-to-person defense of our democracy. It isn't out there, it's here, it's in your pocket. The second thing is, the death of our democracy doesn't happen like this. It happens little by little. You know, in the Philippines, where I come from, the quick summary of Philippine history is 300 years in a convent and 50 years in Hollywood. 300 years under Spanish colonial rule, and then 50 years as a colony of America. We believe in Hollywood. But it's what I said happened to us under President Rodrigo Duterte is kind of like little cuts, so many little cuts in the body politic that you're bleeding in these cuts, and you think, oh, it's only a little paper cut. It's only a little blood on the floor, until you see that you've bled so much that the body politic dies. We're there, right? And then finally the last one is, how do we get through this? Whatever it is, and this works for you as a person, and it works for our democracies. Whatever it is you are most afraid of, think about it, touch it, hold it, embrace it, and you will rob it of its sting. In terms of Rappler, when the government filed 10 criminal charges against me beginning in 2019, and there was a shutdown order, we planned what would happen if we get shut down. What will happen if violence happens? And I workflowed it for my team, right? So this is, if 200 policemen burst through here, this is what every one of us will do. We workflowed it. We drilled it. And we're ready. But the worst things rarely happen. But if you plan it, everything else is better. It's kind of like Buddhism, you know? If all life is suffering, then everything is good, right? You take that. My jokes aren't landing on you. So this goes back to you. These times require courage. And I'll ask you one last thing. The technology that connects all of us plays with our emotion. And it isn't the nice emotions. It is fear, anger, hate. So when you feel that, slow it down, think slow, not fast, because your courage will determine the fate of humanity, right? Let me quickly just go through where we are, that it really is data. How many people here are studying big data? Oh, wow, one. Yo, excellent. Data is what's eating our world. It's transforming our world. In the DSA, the access to real-time data, the Digital Services Act of the EU, right? That access to real-time data will give us power back to try to figure out how we are being insidiously manipulated. And let me quickly go through the 2 times, and then I wanna have a conversation, and I wanna hear what you think, right? You're gonna teach me French too. 2 buckets of artificial intelligence that we've 2 contacts with humanity. The first one is machine learning and artificial intelligence of social media, right? This has happened over time. If you have posted, let's say, 1,400 times on your Facebook page or on Instagram or on Twitter, now called X, machine learning would come in and take every one of your posts and build a model of you that knows you better than you know yourself, right? A model. Change the word model to clone. So the companies say they own your clone because they used their machine learning, and then they took AI and took all of our clones and made that be the motherlode database. That database is how we're micro-targeted. Micro-targeting is not advertising, but that is the new advertising. Micro-targeting is using a company or a country that pays to nudge you at your weakest moment to a message. Did you did you approve the companies owning your clone? No, none of us did. But this is where data is. This is the way I think about the information river, right? When people talk about content moderation in the first one, this is a polluted river, and we take our glass of water, we clean it up, and then we throw it in the polluted river. What we need to do is to stop the factory of lies that is polluting the river, right? Because in that first contact in social media, machine learning, and AI, we know that in 2018, that social media spreads lies 6 times faster than facts. I'll show you that. But the most interesting time right now, which will be transformative to all of us, like when I sit and think about it, it blows my mind because it's like science fiction. It's like Star Trek. Generative AI. What you know as ChatGPT, but you'll also see other ways that it is changing our world. What is that? The large language models. And large language models is something that grew out of machine learning, right? They fed the machine so much data that it had neural networks. They tried to kind of imitate the way our brains work. But the way the machine did is it's the computing power of the machine that made it go off the scale and gave it the ability to talk with you, to chat with you. And look at how fast it's worked. If social media created all these harms in the past that we haven't addressed, generative AI, large language models, is moving at exponential pace before you even know it. So like GPT-2, right? GPT-1 was turning out parameters, that's what they would call it, at 1.5 billion parameters for every, like let's just say, I am Maria, right? It's defining what the word is. It's looking for, the first one was 1.5 billion. GPT-2 was 175 billion parameters. GPT-3, 1.5, 2.5, sorry, GPT-3 is 175 billion. GPT-4, they stopped telling us what that is. It's anywhere from 1 trillion to 100 trillion. The question is, do you own your images, your photo, your audio, your voice? Like if somebody were to record me and then make it, digitally alter it, who owns it? This is some of the questions we're going to have. I want to just quickly show you where it's gone. This is Stanford University, where they took the Foundation Model Transparency Index, and they showed that every single one of the large language models fails. Because in the end, garbage in is garbage out. If you threw in all of the social media hate, social media toxicity, you wind up getting that fed back to you, right? The best of human nature is not there. Of course, it's in the books, right? So anyway, we can talk about all of this, but look at this. Every single one failed. I'm going to end it with 3 slides that may or may not depress you. It's not meant to depress you. I hope it's a call, and I hope it's a challenge. Slide number 1. This is when the gatekeepers, news organizations, lost our power and tech took over. That would be social media. These is how news is distributed today. And the world's largest distribution platform for news is Facebook, now called Meta. They've gone as far as changing their names, but not that much else after. The second, so when you separated content from distribution, distribution became very powerful. In 2018, we found out that lies spread 6 times faster. And in the Philippines, from the data that we had, if we lace it with fear, anger, and hate, it spreads even faster. Finally, in 2021, we had enough data to show you that social media had become a behavior modification system, and we are Pavlov's dogs. So bleak, no? But we found the business model. Shoshana Zuboff came out and called it surveillance capitalism. That didn't happen until 2019. But that business model is the one that is based on data. How do we fight it? All of these things are the same. Antitrust, data privacy, user safety, content moderation, they're all part of the solution, trying to solve the same problem. The second thing is, what does this mean for you, for us as a group, for France as a nation, for the United States, for the Philippines, for the world, right? There's 3 ways it's affecting us. It affects you as a person because this is a thinking fast. You know, thinking fast, thinking slow, Daniel Kahneman's book. This is thinking fast. And it's meant to touch your amygdala, to knock you so that you act without thinking, right? That's why fear, anger, hate. That's why it is an attention economy. So you keep scrolling because they make more money that way. So the first impact is on you. Through your emotions, they change the way you look at the world, and the way when that changes, it changes the way you vote, the way you act. The second thing is, in groups, we behave differently, right? Like, you're familiar from the 60s, the Solomon Asch, the conformity studies, that more of us, 75% of us, will follow the group versus, like, we would behave differently in groups than we would alone. The groups, the mobs on social media have far more power than real life right now. Well, no, that's also not true because online violence is real world violence. the third one is something that I actually just heard a French psychologist say on Christiane Amanpour's show. What's her name? Wait, I will find her. But what's her name? Estelle Perel. Right, so she was in Christiane Amanpour's show, and she said that this changes in our brains and our emotions is literally creating a new species. I was actually shocked she said it. This is emergent human behavior, right? If someone is constantly, I talk about a devil and an angel on our shoulder. If someone is constantly telling you to do the wrong thing, if someone is constantly inciting hate, inciting fear, and you're constantly angry and hateful, changes the way you act in the world, right? So emergent human behavior. And finally, between now and next year, the end of next year, there will be 65 elections in 54 countries around the world that will be critical. But there are 3 sentences I've said over and over since we lived this in the Philippines. When I saw lies become facts and facts become lies. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we don't have a shared reality. We cannot solve any problem like climate change, let alone have a democracy, right? If we're so busy yelling at each other and hating each other, how do we do this? So the question there is, the doomsday clock for democracy is ticking. This is what the Etats, généraux de l'information wants to stop. You're lucky you don't have elections next year, but the 3 largest democracies in the world do. Indonesia is in February, the world's largest Muslim population. Taiwan is in January. Taiwan has been targeted by disinformation. India has elections, and then, of course, the United States later, right? So the kinds of pounding of the fracture lines of society by geopolitical information operations, you are the target. So what do you believe? How do you feel? Let me just, I'm going to pass through all of this. This is the stuff we live through. This is the attacks that I get. Have you had attacks like this? I hope you don't. But I was getting 90 hate messages per hour for doing a series in 2016. This is really yucky. Don't drink right now. This is the kinds of stuff that I was getting. I got this sent to me by my mom. But this kind of dehumanization is the first step to violence. Right? So you have to be careful about this. We've lived through this before. They used to call me scrotum face. It took the platform so long to take this down. And even when they did, so I'm not corrupt, but I do have dry skin. So they looked for how they could attack me. And they thought, okay, she has dry skin. Let's attack that. So the photos, you can see what they did. And then they took that scrotum face and added it. This is on Facebook, right? This stuff happens. It isn't the only. I'm not alone. I hope it doesn't happen to you, but if you are a woman journalist, a woman researcher, or a woman leader, you get targeted more. In the Philippines, at least 10 times more. This is a UNESCO report. Julie Passetti, who's in the audience, wrote The Chilling Global Trends in Online Violence Against Women Journalists. Look at some of this stuff. 73% experienced online abuse. 25% of that received threats of physical violence. And of that, 20% were attacked in the real world, right? It moves. Online violence is real-world violence. This is, again, in the UNESCO ICFJ report that came out last year, 60% of the attacks against me were meant to tear down my credibility. 40% was dehumanizing, was meant to tear down my spirit. It didn't work. You know what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So let me end with this, right? Like how it is coming for us. Because in the end, the same thing happened with the violence on Capitol Hill, which is what happened to us, online attacks. Say a lie a million times, it becomes a fact. The Stop steal the vote when they were saying that there is no voter integrity. That landed August 20th, 2019 on RT, a year earlier, that there would be no integrity of elections. And Steve Bannon picks it up August 11th, 2020. Tucker Carlson on Fox picks it up September 15th. QAnon drops it October 7th. Then President Trump, says it in November. And this violence, the first time ever on Capitol Hill, happened. We are easily manipulated, and oftentimes the smart people will say, that doesn't happen to me, it happens to those guys out there. The smarter you are, the harder you fall, because it is our emotions, right? And this graph was done by the Election Integrity Partnership. Look at what's happening to them now in the United States, the weaponization of the law. They've been called, they've been subpoenaed. I'm going to ask Camille. They've been called ahead, right? So the same things that happen in the Philippines, it is coming for you. It is coming for you. So this is our question. How do you rebuild trust, right? And that is a question les Etats généraux de l'information will ask you. I have a 12 Days of Christmas joke, and I'm going to ask Camille to actually name all of the people. But, you know, the État généraux de l'information is 3 French women, 2 French men, and a Filipina. That's what President Macron put together. But the group, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't be cracking too many jokes. But, you know, the group that Sciences Po is going to be critical to that, because we have a partnership with Columbia University where Camille Francois, stand up, Camille. I got a mic for you here. Come here.
That's a trap. That's a trap, but it's true that we're very grateful for Sciences Po's involvement by our sides in the États généraux de l'information, where we'll be working on many. Yes, is that the thing you were? Where we'll be working on many topics, including the intersection of AI and democracy, and where we really do want to hear your voices, your ideas, your aspirations for what to do at this very critical moment. So back to you, Maria, and to the questions and the audience.
She says it so much nicer than I do. Thank you, Camille. All right. So let me leave it with just this. For me, the answer to how you rebuild trust is this. There are 3 pillars: technology, journalism, and community. You are a powerful community. And, you know, the Paris Peace Forum, actually, I kept popping up in the Paris Peace Forum. I'm going to learn French. But, you know, aside from État généraux de l'information, she says it's so much better. We also, with RSF, just came out with a charter of AI for journalism. So this is for our industry. And the last part is, you know, how do we use this technology? How do we put guardrails? How do we work with it? It's good that you're trying it, because we have to work with it. And these are the ways that we're going to do it. I'm going to end with what was signed last year by 300 Nobel laureates, civil society groups. It's called the 10-Point Action Plan that largely addresses the EU. 7 of those things go to the EU. But, you know, I call the EU the fastest in the race of the turtles. They're very much faster than the UN, which is not going to come together until next year. But 3 buckets. First, stop surveillance for profit, right? That's the first. The second one, stop coded bias. Because if you are a woman, LGBTQ+, if you are marginalized in the real world, you are further marginalized online. Second. Third, journalism as an antidote for tyranny. I've been talking too much. I will turn it back to the Dean. Thank you, guys.
All right. So the floor is now to you. Remember our charter. There are no good questions or bad questions. There are no good answers or bad answers. There is questions, answers, and great amount of respect, tolerance, and plurality of view. That's our charter, Maria.
Oh,
Hope you like that charter.
Awesome.
All right, so we're going to start with the lady over there, and then we'll go to the other side.
Hi. Thank you so much for your talk.
Please say your name. Tell me who you are.
I'm Arushi. I'm from India. I'm studying journalism at Sciences Po, and which is why what you said initially, what will you sacrifice for the truth? It's something that I think of literally every single second because I want to be a journalist. And I think this is more of a personal question in the sense, how do you draw the line? Where do you personally draw the line, and which battles are you willing to fight? Which ones are you willing to lose? Because growing up in India, the journalism scene in India right now, and like you mentioned, we have elections next year, and there's extreme disinformation and hate speech online and offline. So, and journalists are targeted literally every single day. And I struggle with this question every day.
Do you want, so.
No, over to you.
Well, first, thank you for coming in, right? Like, part of, people always, my first question to everyone is really, what gives you hope? And inevitably, so I turned 60 in October, so inevitably it comes down to the youth. It comes down to the idealism that you have. It comes down to you knowing the battle that you're walking into, right? How do I draw? I actually, in the book, draw the line is the very first thing. When you draw the line, you know that on this side you're good, and when you cross over, you're evil. It has to be that clear in your head, because as you get older, as you make more money, you will rationalize bad behavior. And you will know that while you're sitting there without any vested interests, if you've drawn the line well, then you go back to that, right? Like, that's part of, I think, I've lived a life of no regrets because of something like that. But look, I think in the Philippines, I realized that we couldn't give up you cannot voluntarily give up your rights, because when you do, you lose them. And that's what we realized in the Philippines. But you also can't do this alone. You do this with your community, right? Don't do this alone. I worry about our young, Rappler is only 120 people. Our median age is 23 years old, and it is 63% women. Not by design. I mean, we need more men. You know, so I think in your case, India is the massive attacks. The BJP has armies, right, that exploit what social media is. So don't do this alone, right? Get a community together, and then know when you need to deploy. Be smart about this. Does that make sense? I guess the one thing, please, to take away is, it is up to you what actions you take. Because in the end, the only thing we can control is ourselves. And if you voluntarily give up your rights, you will never get them back. That's like in my case, in Rappler, we did a team meeting where I tried to point out, and our team were the ones who said it, like, a decade from now, from the time when we were being attacked, that was 6 years ago. Right? So now it's going to be a decade. We want to look back and know that we did everything we could, because that is the power you have now. You have tremendous power in this moment. Collectively, you have even more power together. Don't voluntarily give up your rights.
Oh, thank you. All right. Because we don't have an incredible amount of time, and there are many of you, we're going to take a couple of questions at the time, right? So over to you, and then on the other side.
Thank you for your marvelous speech just now. And I was really honored because I was at the Paris Peace Forum to listen to your speech and your panel discussion on the 10 actions. So I've been interested in media politics for years, and I'm now doing a thesis on digital governance. So my question is about, in the age of digital media, surveillance power is to some extent rendered to platforms. So their fact-check standards and algorithms influence what content is displayed on platforms and can therefore limit certain media and pose a threat to the freedom of expression or create biased knowledge. So how can we address this issue in a timely manner? For example, in like information war, and especially in warfares or in social controversies happening now. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other one?
Okay, I'll try to be really quick. I'm not a student anymore, a long time ago. I'll just say two things before I get to my question. I just returned from China. I was a correspondent in China for 10 years, almost. And so I'm really happy with these kinds of events. Secondly, the fact that you won the Nobel Prize, it sort of shines to the whole journal community, so thank you very much. My question is, in China, what I did was go into the field. That was always the mantra. Like, you go into the field, you go to the sources, you talk to people, see where they come from, what shapes their opinions. You talked a lot about computers. Is this fieldwork still valid?
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Want another one?
Sure.
Lady over there.
We'll do three.
All right.
And then I'll respond.
Hi, Maria. I'm Venus. I'm studying human rights here at Tionspo. I'm from the Philippines, so
Hello,
it's
Venus.
personally very great to see a Filipino for the first time on the Emile Butmi stage. And I was really struck by your final question, on how to rebuild trust. And I remember a statement you made in September 2023 when the final trumped-up tax evasion case against you was finally dismissed. You said that under the Marcos regime, we can see a lifting of the culture of fear. And I saw that in my networks in the human rights movement in the Philippines, a lot of people I knew did not share that sentiment, and rightfully so, because since Marcos took office, at least 4 journalists have been killed, and there have been at least 75 attacks on press freedom, which the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility notes is higher than any one-year term of Duterte. So I want to ask you this question. I mean, of course, you have a different perspective, being the subject of the number one, I think, subject of attacks under the Duterte regime. Do you still stand by that statement? And if you could issue one challenge to the Marcos administration, to the Marcos Duterte regime, on how to rebuild trust, what would it be?
Okay, fantastic. Let me take the questions in reverse order, and I'll go back, right? So Venus, I did say that there was a lifting of fear, and part of that was because under the Duterte administration, just to keep doing my job, I had to be okay with going to jail for more than a century, right? Like, who demands that kind of sacrifice from somebody, right? The first woman who asked the question. But this is the reality of being a journalist today. In many ways, you have to be ready to take what comes with it. The risks have escalated, the dangers are far more. You didn't say your name, the correspondent from China who had been there for a decade. But your work, right, working in China is extremely difficult. I was there, I was on the death watch, meaning with CNN, I rotated in because we could never leave China alone because of the death watch. And we had minders. And now the minder is everywhere. It's the cameras, it's China, even if you go in a locker room in China, for example, it's your face that opens the locker. Everything is digitized. So let me answer the question. Today, and thank you for setting this up, today, Laila de Lima, a senator who spent her entire time as senator in jail under the Duterte administration, finally walked out of jail in a courtroom trial today where she was granted bail after nearly 7 years in jail, right? The 3 years she was a senator, she spent in jail, and now she finally is out. It was quite an emotional morning to see her in court. I think, you know, this woman just stayed the course, even through nearly 7 years in jail. It would be 7 years in February. So, what did she say? A lifting of fear. She said, and you know what the fear is? It's the fear of the justices. That they now, that the political pressure, we hope, and I have to be careful what I say because in order to be here, I have to ask for Supreme Court approval. And there are certain restraints on what I can say. When I'm back in Manila, you can email me and I'll tell you. But while I'm still out. So what I will say is, if you're a journalist, you say the positives, you say the negatives. And I think that part of, and this I will say for activists, right? There is a lifting of fear because the justices, the judges, rule of law is returning. The Philippines is not Russia, it is not North Korea. We can stay the course and hope that the values, you know, our Constitution is patterned after the United States. We have a Bill of Rights, and I believe we will come out stronger. Again, something Laila de Lima, the senator, said today. She said that, it's kind of like that Nietzsche quote, she never gave up, and what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. The last thing I'll say is that in the Philippines, especially now in the Middle East, right, the narratives of decolonization, especially when it comes to, I'm going to walk into it, guys, especially when it comes to Palestine, Gaza, and Israel. Activism takes you so far, but the world needs to find a solution. Don't take a winner-take-all approach, because there is a side for everyone here, and it isn't a journalist's job to do it. So, what a long answer to your question. Yes, I do stand by it, and it is far from perfect, but the level of fear, as acknowledged by many people, when I said that, it was because 70 years of potential prison went away. I was vindicated, right? I still have 34 years in there, but you know, it's better than it was, right? The second question on China. The Nobel wasn't for me, it wasn't for Rappler, it wasn't just for the Philippines. It was the first time that journalists all around the world were recognized for the sacrifices that they have made. And within 4 months of Dmitry Muratov and I getting the prize in Oslo, excuse me a second. Within 4 months, I better drink, hold on. I'm back. Okay, you know you have to take your emotions and sit on them. You gotta be Mr. Spock. Within 4 months, both Dmitry and I were together again, and we were in Geneva, and both our news organizations were in danger of getting shut down. And as you know, his news organization has been shut down. Rappler is still here. Our lawyers told me in 2016 that I was crazy to stand up. There's a phrase in Indonesian, the nail that stands up gets the hammer. We're still here, right?
Over there.
Hi, my name is Paula. I'm a recently graduated journalism former student from the Sciences Po School of Journalism. Thank you so much for your talk. My question goes back to everything you said about Meta and Twitter, now X. So, since the beginning of the month, in the European Union, Instagram and Facebook have become paying services for users that don't want to sell their personal data. So first of all, what do you think about that? And the main part of the question is, are there solutions around it, barring deleting the app because, for example, I use Twitter and Instagram and Facebook for work and leisure, and I do not want to get rid of the apps, but I do not want to sell my personal data. So is there a way around it? Thank you.
Thank you. Over there.
Hello, I'm also short. Hi, my name is Alaika, and I am also from the Philippines. I am not from Sciences Po, but I am a senior data analytics engineer. And I used to be a journalist as well during my university days in the Philippines. And I'm here because I admire you so much, and I'm a huge fan of your work. So my question goes like this. I guess it's two questions, actually. Today, we know that there are two things that are affecting the acceptance of misinformation among the masses. First is the amount of information that is present in online platforms. Yep. And secondly, it's the ability of these fake news peddlers to relate to the emotions of these people. Especially in the Philippines, the masses are so attracted to these fake news because these news appeal to their poverty, to their social problems in general. And so what I'm saying is, today, the truth has been considered as a thing of intellectual elitists. That's why they hate the truth so much. My question is, how is Rappler, as a digital news agency, and you as an influential journalist, mitigating this or solving this kind of problem today?
Thank you. Gentleman over there.
Hi, Mathias, an international security student here at Sciences Po. There has been some criticism of the DSA because oversight and enforcement relies mainly on the European Commission instead of an independent agency. What is your ideal model for enforcement and oversight of these very necessary regulations? And also thank you for your fight and for being here.
Thank you. We'll take another one over there.
Hi, hello. My name is Gustavo. I'm a student. I'm the Masters of Public Policy in the digital stream here. I'm also actually working with AI at UNESCO, so I'm very glad to see that you enjoyed the work.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And a little background to my question is, I'm Brazilian and Latin American, and nice. And when you said the death by 1,000 cuts, it really resonates. We had Bolsonaro. Right now, there are upcoming elections with Milei and Massa in Argentina. Yeah. And as a Brazilian, what I saw in the upcoming to Bolsonaro, there was this fall into the right, into fascism, but there was also some truth to the revolt. I was wondering how much of these issues like hate and disinformation and this geopolitical fall into fascism are also part of this larger shift of this larger shift into fascism and into populist ideologies, in despite of the disinformation, the information disorders we were speaking today. Just look at that as a symptom, not as a root cause. How do you address? And it also connects with the earlier question. I think it really resonates with this, the social aspects. There are many, many problems, and it makes people appeal to that, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. There's so many, so let me take them. I didn't answer the very first one, which is how are you going to deal with the information war, right? I think the first is think slow, not fast, right? If you feel yourself on social, first, if I had kids, I would not allow them on social. And I know that's FOMO, but part of it is, you know, it's kind of like alcohol. There's a drinking age. What's the drinking age in France? Is there no one? 18. Is there one? Right, 18. 21 in the United States. There's none. But part of that is because it's dangerous. It really is. It's dangerous. This is more like George Orwell. It isn't it is Soma. You know the drug Soma in Brave New World, right? So I think there's that, and it was designed to actually exploit our biology, our emotions. So think about it like this. When I want to be a contrarian and look for the bright side of things, It actually, tech has shown us that all of us around the world have far more in common than we have differences, because we are all being exploited the same way by the technology, right? Our biology is the same, and it is thinking, it's that amygdala, the push, and if you feel that, step back. If you can avoid it, step back. Build your community in the real world, because the real world trumps. Oh, I hate that. I shouldn't have said that. The real world beats the virtual world, right? So that's the first. Paula, let me respond. Is there a way around it if you don't want to sell your data? Not really. So, I mean, the other way is you can find, Mastodon is difficult to use, and it doesn't scale in the same way. But if you become the target of attack, and I've now been attacked by all sides, you actually have more psychological resilience to the attacks on a system like Mastodon, which is desegregated. We can talk about this more, right? This is part of what we want to look at. Does the TCP/IP protocol, I'm one of the 10 people that was appointed by Antonio Guterres to the leadership panel of the Internet Governance Forum, the UN. Is this being live streamed? It's not, no? It is. I'll tell you about it later. No. I can say it. I think I can say it, and I don't think they'll take offense. Sometimes, unlike now, where the UN actually has been very vocal about the conflicts that we're going through, but sometimes, especially when we were starting, we would have a 2-hour Zoom, and I can fall asleep, and when I wake up, we'd be in the same place. We need to move faster. We need to move faster, and there needs to be an international group to go back to that, right? This is why les Etats, généraux de l'information, say it better. This is why I think that's important, and this is why I think the partnership between the Institute of Global Politics at the School of International Public Affairs in Colombia and Sciences Po, what a long thing, that's important, because what moves in one country affects everyone else. I studied counterterrorism, and I was the reporter in charge for CNN of looking at Al-Qaeda's networks in Southeast Asia. And Al-Qaeda's ideology, I was trying to figure out how that virulent ideology could convince a young man or woman to become a suicide bomber, right? That virulent ideology spreads, and it exploits loneliness. And if you know that right now, in May, the Surgeon General of the United States just announced that there is an epidemic of loneliness, right? So think about it like this. Sorry, I'm going to deviate. If the first contact with AI exploits our fear, anger, and hate, the second contact with generative AI is going to exploit the loneliness that is inside every one of us, right? That's scary. That's why build in the real world. So, Alaika, you said 2 things affecting the acceptance of misinformation. There is a fire hose of falsehood. And one of the things that we've always known in media is that repetition makes it a fact. This technology repeats 1 million times before the facts get out the door. So, in Russian disinformation, the Russian military doctrine, and the reason I keep going back to that is it was the first time we really saw it exploited. In fact, Camille Francois was tracked down the Russian troll farms, right? When she was at Google. Can I say this? Okay. When she was at Jigsaw, which was the think tank of Google, and then at Google, she was called the troll farm girl. The troll farm girl, because she discovered them, right? So this was part of the Russian military doctrine, disinformation, information operations, or the way Americans would say it, the fire hose of falsehoods, right? So that fire hose comes at you, and that is what is trained on you, in many instances on each of us. So the fire hose of falsehood. I'll just leave it with this one quote by Yuri Andropov, who was a former KGB chairman. He went on to head the Soviet Union, right? He said, "Disinformatia is like cocaine. You take it once or twice, you're okay. But if you take it all the time, you become a changed person." We have been taking it all the time, guys, right? So that's part of the reason violence has happened. Matthias, oh no, Alaika said, truth is intellectual elitism. How is Rappler solving the problem? We go to the facts, right? In the Philippines, it's really hard. It's not about political parties. When did politics become a gladiator's battle to the death, right? We shouldn't be in that position because democracies depend on us listening as much as screaming online, right? But the platforms aren't built that way. So we go back despite the criticism. And if you do a good job, the tech companies are learning this, both sides or all sides will get mad at you. But you have to stay the course, because in the end, that's the mission of journalism. Matthias, criticism of the DSA. Look, I'm just so happy the DSA is out the door. It is the only one that is there. And, you know, it's funny, I'm very focused on, and I hope, Sciences Po, more data scientists. I hope that that data part of the Digital Services Act, which gives access to real-time data from all of these platforms, that we are going to be able to analyze it and show you the patterns and trends, how we are being insidiously manipulated. Enforcement, I think it is moving so fast that this is what they're debating now, right? And this is some of the things that Camille, and that French thing, EGI, États généraux de l'information. I still don't get it right. I have to get the right pronunciation. I think that's one of the things that we want to try to get to. Gustavo. Let me tell you one of the things that's fascinating with the rise of Bolsonaro. And this is a Harvard study that was fascinating because it showed you clustered, the way the recommendation engine of YouTube clustered the far-right fringe figure, who was Bolsonaro, with every single conspiracy theorist on YouTube. And when they clustered them together, that meant if you believed that, you know, that coronavirus wasn't fatal, and you would somehow get fed the videos of Bolsonaro, right? So the conspiracy theorists were clustered together. That was how Bolsonaro became president. That provided the impetus to move him into mainstream and was behind the January 8th violence. These are the clustered algorithm, network clustering algorithm. Your question is how much of the geopolitical issues fall into fascism or also part of the larger shift of populist ideologies. The incentive structure of our information ecosystem rewards the lies, right? Think about that again. In 2018, and it's probably far worse after Elon Musk took over Twitter because he fired all the trust and safety teams, right? But it used to be that lies spread 6 times faster. So it's almost like if you had a child, I hope no one here has a child yet. I know some do. But if you have a child, you tell your child, lie. I'm gonna reward you. I'll give you ice cream if you lie. Lie again. I'm gonna keep rewarding you. That's why we're in the upside down, right? Because that basic foundational value has been shifted. You know, Stranger Things, do you watch that? Do you have that in French? We're living in the upside down. So that thing of, you know, the populists who lie have the advantage. They get their messages distributed to a wider range. And, you know, when they promise you something they can't deliver, who's going to hold them accountable? You're going to elect them? So these are some of the things. I hit Gustavo. That's it. That was...
And on this, dear friends, I am as strict as instructions to let Maria go because she's got an next appointment. So, the bad news is that it ends here today, but the good news is that she promised she's going to come soon to unveil the results of the Etats, généraux de l'information. So we get going. She comes back. If you would hold on so that we can let her go, otherwise she will not get to her next appointment.
Get out. Thanks.
You're back.